consider the situation here. The Supreme Court basically just put this question, this deep moral question about abortion, back into the hands of democracy, back into the hands of the voters and their representatives, having had it ripped away for almost half a century. They are now saying that, the people can decide this question. The states can decide this question. And so for Wanda Sykes to go on there and Stephen Colbert to, nod along and say, oh, yes, this is a very important point that you're making. Obviously, our moral arbiters now, these late night hosts, and to declare this in such a way, it's completely wrong. And then for Max Boot, this warmongering moron who is someone who has no understanding of the American founding, who ought to be yeeted out of a cannon into the sea, to come into this debate and say that this is a tyranny of a minority issue. No, it's not. It's taking something that always should have been decided by the states, their representatives, their voters, and giving it back to them. That's a good thing. Trust the people. Trust the people. They can make these determinations for themselves, and they do not need to have them decided from on high by a bunch of people in robes.
That was Fox News gasbag Ben Domenech with a message for Americans outraged at the loss of half a century of abortion rights. Just trust the people. Of course, what Domenech really means is just trust Republicans. The same Republicans who are working to end not only abortion, but our fundamental privacy rights as well. Domenech is hoping you won't realize just how unpopular the Republican war on abortion actually is. Nearly 7 in 10 Americans support legal abortion, including nearly a third of self-identified Republicans. In fact, support for abortion is the highest it's ever been. But when Fox News tells you to just trust the people, they aren't talking about those people. Fox News wants you to just trust them because when Americans start looking into what red states are actually doing, they absolutely hate it. And there is no shortage of things to be outraged about. Across the nation, Republican lawmakers are enforcing bans on everything from abortion to birth control pills to IVF. And they want those laws to follow residents even after they leave the state. In Missouri, Republicans are championing legislation that would make it a civil offense for a woman to leave the state in order to obtain an abortion. They're borrowing a page from a Texas law that deputizes private citizens as bounty hunters, empowering them to spy on their neighbors for signs of pro-abortion behavior. If a Missourian is suspected of obtaining an abortion, their neighbors can haul them into civil court and sue them, as well as anyone who offered material support. That includes everyone from doctors to Lyft drivers to the friend who told you where to go. Now other states are following Missouri's lead. On June 29th, the New York Times reported that anti-choice lobby groups are already writing up sample legislation to take Missouri's authoritarian approach nationwide. They're also fans of a Louisiana law that says life begins at the moment of fertilization, a position that effectively bans artificial fertilization treatments. That's a position so extreme that even Republicans rejected it until just this year. These are the people Fox News is asking you to trust. Fox accuses the libs of lacking a basic understanding of how our republic works. But they can't quite explain how states like Missouri have suddenly gained the power to close their borders to other states. By punishing women who leave Missouri to get abortions, Republicans have effectively banned abortion in states even where it's still legal for Missourians. Republicans are seizing the opportunity to enact sweeping restrictions on reproductive freedom, and that means throwing away their fake commitment to limited government. And so far, Democrats have responded by doing nothing. Republicans like Ben Domenech are worried about preserving states' rights, they say, but they have a funny way of showing it. In some red states, local voters have already spoken. In Alaska, for example, voters and the state Supreme Court have enshrined abortion rights into the state constitution years ago. It wasn't even that controversial. Until, that is, Alaska's constitution got in the way of Republican power. In Alaska, Republican lawmakers and activists are now demanding the state Supreme Court overrule the people and declare abortion unconstitutional. If the judges refuse, Republicans have proposed impeaching and removing defiant state Supreme Court justices and replacing them with appointees who are more willing to take orders. Does that sound like a party interested in defending the principles of the Republic? The GOP is being clear. now that its compromised Supreme Court has overruled Roe, the race is on to pass the harshest, most extreme, most anti-women, anti-choice laws imaginable, even if that means exceeding every previous limit on state power. Spin artists like Ben Domenech don't care about the people that they're hurting. They care about turning America's red states into their own third world nations. And in the case of Missouri, effectively criminalizing interstate travel. Americans are being shut out of their own republic by a GOP that only cares about getting as much power as it can, as fast as it can. And with Democrats in Washington seemingly unwilling to treat this as the crisis that it is, state and local activists are once again left to fight this rise of fascism on their own.